I didn't know that serving 1 cup of coffee would end with me demanding a mafia boss's real identity. But that's exactly where this started. He walked into Velvet and Oak at 11:47 p.m. and every person in the restaurant changed. Not in some loud, dramatic way. Worse. The kind of shift that only happens when someone powerful walks in and everybody else remembers to be careful. Conversations stopped. The bartender froze mid-pour. Even the piano player missed a note. That was my first warning. The second was my manager grabbing my arm hard enough to hurt. "Table 7, Dominic hissed, "and Kia, don't mess this up." I looked over and saw him sitting alone in black, like the whole room belonged to him. Korean, late 30s maybe, tailored suit, cold face, eyes that looked older than the rest of him. Not tired, not angry, just unreadable in a way that made my chest feel tight for reasons I couldn't explain. I grabbed a menu and walked over with the smile I used on difficult men. "Good evening, sir. Can I start you with—" "Americano, black, no sugar." He didn't even look up, so I turned to leave. "Wait." I stopped. Slowly he lifted his eyes to mine, and something in me went still, because the way he looked at me did not feel random. It felt specific, focused, wrong, like he already knew something about me that I did not know about him. "What's your name?" he asked. "Kia." He repeated it under his breath, like he was testing it, like it meant something. I brought him his coffee. He never touched it. He just watched me every time I passed his table, and with every second that stare got heavier. Not lust, not simple curiosity. Recognition. By midnight, the restaurant was empty, except for us. Then he looked at Dominic once and said, "Lock the door." That was the moment I should have run, because I didn't know his real identity yet. But I knew one thing for sure. The Korean Mafia boss at table 7 had not walked into my life by accident. And before the night was over, I was going to need answers he never wanted to give. Before I go any further, let me ask you something. Have you ever made a choice that didn't feel like a choice at all? If you have, you'll understand what comes next. And if you know that suffocating feeling of being trapped by your own decisions, hit subscribe. Not because it helps me, but because stories like this remind us that sometimes the illusion of control is the cruelest trap of all. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on my apartment floor, staring at that black card until sunrise. Part of me wanted to throw it away, burn it, pretend it never existed. But the other part, the part that hated being told what to do, wanted answers. Who was he? Why me? What did he mean by someone else will make the choice for you? At 11:58 a.m. I picked up my phone. My thumb hovered over the numbers. 2 minutes, that's all I had to decide. At exactly noon, I dialed. He answered on the first ring. "Kia." Hearing him say my name again sent chills down my spine. "I'm calling because I want answers, not because I'm scared." "Liar!" I gritted my teeth. "What do you want from me?" "Meet me at 1426 West Hamilton Street, apartment 9B, come alone." "And if I don't?" Silence. Then softly, "Then I'll come to you." He hung up. I shouldn't have gone. I knew that. But curiosity and maybe stupidity drove me to that address anyway. It was an old building in a part of town I'd never been to. Expensive cars lined the street, but the building itself looked abandoned. I climbed the stairs to the 9th floor. My footsteps echoed in the empty hallway. Apartment 9B had no nameplate, just a number. I knocked. The door opened immediately. He stood there, dressed casually this time, black turtleneck, dark jeans. He looked almost normal, but his eyes still held that same cold intensity. "Come in." The apartment was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, minimalist furniture, everything precise, controlled, like him. "Sit." I didn't. "I'm not here to play games. Tell me what this is about." He poured himself a glass of whiskey, completely unbothered by my defiance. 3 weeks ago, you served a man at Velvet and Oak, grey suit, scar on his left cheek. Do you remember him?" I frowned, searching my memory. Then it hit me. "Yeah, he left a huge tip. Why?" "That man works for me, and he reported something interesting." "What?" He took a slow sip, watching me over the rim of his glass. "You asked him his name. You looked him in the eye when you spoke. You didn't flinch when he touched your hand." I blinked. So, he said, stepping closer. "Most people who work in that restaurant know better than to acknowledge my men. They look down, they stay quiet, they disappear. But you," he tilted his head, "you treated him like a regular person. Because he is a regular person." His jaw tightened. "No, he's not, and neither am I." The air between us crackled with tension. "I still don't understand why I'm here." He set down his glass and walked toward me, stopping just inches away. I could smell his cologne, expensive, suffocating. "You're here because I need someone who doesn't know my world, someone who won't ask questions, someone—" His eyes traced my face. "Expendable!" My blood ran cold. "Expendable?" "For now." He stepped back, giving me space to breathe again. "I have enemies, Kia. Powerful ones, and they've been watching me closely. I need someone close to me who they won't expect. Someone who looks innocent. Someone like you." "You want me to be what? Bait?" "Protection," he corrected. "You'll live under my supervision for the next 6 months. You'll attend events with me. You'll play a role. And in return, I'll pay you more money than you'd make in 5 years at that restaurant." I laughed bitterly. "And if I say no?" His expression darkened. "Then the men watching you outside your apartment right now will make sure you don't have a choice." My heart stopped. "You're bluffing!" He pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. My apartment. Taken this morning. Someone had been watching me. I felt sick. "This isn't a choice," I whispered. "No," he agreed. "It never was. You know what hurts the most? Not what they did, but realizing too late that you never had control to begin with. If you've ever been cornered by circumstances you didn't create, you already understand this pain. Don't just scroll. Subscribe. Join people who've been through it too, because you deserve stories that make you feel seen." I moved into his penthouse 3 days later. Not because I wanted to, because I had no choice. He made sure of that. The place was cold. All glass and marble, sharp edges and empty spaces. It felt like a museum. Beautiful, but lifeless. My room was on the east wing, far from his. He made that clear from the start. "We're not lovers," he said the first night, handing me a thick manila folder. "We're business partners, nothing more." Inside the folder was a contract. 23 pages of legal jargon I barely understood, but the main points were clear. I'd attend his events, smile when necessary, and never, under any circumstances, ask about his work. "What if I break the rules?" I asked. He didn't blink. "You won't." There was no threat in his voice, just certainty, like he'd already calculated every possible move I could make and decided none of them mattered. I signed it anyway. What else could I do? The first week was suffocating. He barely spoke to me. I'd see him in the mornings, dressed in sharp suits, smelling like expensive cologne and danger. He'd nod once, then disappear for hours. Sometimes he wouldn't come back until past midnight. I wasn't allowed to leave without permission. Not to the store, not to see friends, nowhere. "Security risk," his assistant Min-jun explained. He was younger than his boss, maybe late 20s, with a polite smile that never reached his eyes. "You'll adjust." But I didn't adjust. I felt like a prisoner in a luxury cage. On day 8, I broke the first rule. He'd left his office door open, just a crack. I'd walked past it a dozen times, always curious, always too scared to look. But that morning he was gone. Min-jun was running errands. The penthouse was empty. I pushed the door open. The office was immaculate. Dark wood desk, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. A single laptop, closed, but what caught my attention was the wall behind his desk. Photos, dozens of them, pinned up like a detective's investigation board. I stepped closer, my heart racing. Some were surveillance shots. People entering buildings, sitting in cars, meeting in alleys. Others were formal portraits, politicians, businessmen, people I recognized from the news. And then I saw it. My photo, not from the restaurant. This was older. Me, walking out of my old apartment 2 years ago. Me, at a grocery store. Me, getting coffee. He'd been watching me long before that night at Velvet and Oak. "You're smarter than I gave you credit for." I spun around. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "How long?" My voice shook. "How long have you been watching me?" "Long enough." "Why?" He walked past me, picking up a small frame from his desk. Inside was a photo of a woman. Korean, beautiful, young, dead eyes. "You remind me of someone," he said quietly. "Someone I couldn't save." I swallowed hard. "Who?" He set the frame down, his jaw tightening. "That's not your concern. You made it my concern when you dragged me into this." His eyes snapped to mine, cold and cutting. "You think you're trapped? You think this is hard?" He stepped closer, towering over me. "You have no idea what hard is, Kia. You sleep in safety. You eat without fear. You breathe without wondering if it's your last. So don't stand here and pretend you're suffering." I flinched, but I didn't back down. "Then let me go." "No." "Why not?" He leaned in so close I could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight he carried like armour. "Because if I do, you'll die, and I won't let that happen twice." Before I could respond, he walked out, slamming the door behind him. I stood there trembling, staring at that photo of the woman who looked nothing like me, but somehow everything like me. And I realised something terrifying. He wasn't protecting me from his enemies. He was protecting me from himself. When I finally stood my ground, he called me ungrateful. But tell me, where was his honesty when I was signing my life away? If you've ever had to choose truth over comfort, this channel is your space. Subscribe, not for me, but for every quiet soul who refused to stay silent. 2 weeks in, he told me to get ready. "We're going out tonight," he said over breakfast. He didn't look up from his tablet. "Where?" "A gala, charity event. Politicians, businessmen, people who pretend to care about the world while destroying it behind closed doors." He finally looked at me. "You'll need to wear something elegant. Min-jun will take you shopping." "I don't want to go." His expression didn't change. That wasn't a request. Min-jun took me to a boutique I couldn't pronounce the name of. Everything cost more than my monthly rent used to. He picked out a dress, deep emerald green, floor length, with a slit that ran dangerously high. "He'll like this," Min-jun said. "I don't care what he likes." Min-jun smiled, but it was sad. "You should. It'll make tonight easier." When I came out of the dressing room, even the sales associate looked impressed. The dress fit perfectly, hugging every curve, making me look like someone I wasn't. Someone powerful. Someone dangerous. "Perfect," Min-jun said. I barely recognized myself in the mirror. That evening he was waiting by the car. Black suit, hair slicked back. He looked like he belonged on a magazine cover, cold, untouchable, devastatingly handsome. When he saw me, something flickered in his eyes. Just for a second, then it was gone. "You clean up well," he said flatly. "Thanks, you too." He opened the car door for me. "Tonight you don't speak unless spoken to. You smile, you stay close to me, and most importantly," he leaned in, his voice dropping, "you don't ask questions. Understood?" I nodded. The gala was held at a mansion I'd only seen in movies. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, men in tuxedos and women in diamonds. I felt like an imposter. He placed his hand on the small of my back, guiding me through the crowd. People stared, whispered. I could feel their eyes dissecting me, wondering who I was and why I was with him. "Relax," he murmured into my ear. "You're making them nervous." "I'm making them nervous?" "Yes, they don't know you. That scares them." We stopped in front of a group of older men. Politicians, I assumed. They greeted him with forced smiles and firm handshakes. "And who is this lovely lady?" one of them asked, eyeing me like a piece of meat. "A friend," he said smoothly. "Just a friend?" The man grinned. "You're getting soft." His grip on my waist tightened. "Careful, Congressman." The man's smile faltered. He quickly changed the subject. I watched the whole exchange in silence, noting how everyone here feared him, how they disguised it with laughter and pleasantries. But it was there, in their eyes, in their posture. He controlled the room without saying a word. We moved through the crowd, stopping to greet more people. Each conversation felt like a chess game. Words layered with meaning, smiles hiding threats. Then I saw her, a woman across the room, Korean, late 20s, stunning. She was staring directly at him, her expression unreadable. His entire body tensed. "Who's that?" I whispered. "No one." But it wasn't no one, because when she started walking toward us, he grabbed my arm and pulled me in the opposite direction. "We're leaving." What? Why? Now, Kia. We were halfway to the exit when she called out, "Running away again?" He stopped. His jaw clenched so tight I thought it might crack. Slowly he turned around. She stood there, arms crossed, a bitter smile on her lips. "Who's your new toy?" she asked, her eyes sliding to me with cold amusement. "Leave," he said quietly. "Or what? You'll make me disappear like you did to her?" The room went silent. Everyone was watching now. His voice dropped to something lethal. "You don't want to do this here." "Why not?" She stepped closer. "Afraid they'll finally see who you really are." Before I could process what was happening, he grabbed my hand and pulled me out of the ballroom. We didn't stop until we were in the car, speeding through the city. I stared at him, my heart pounding. "Who was she?" He didn't answer. "Answer me." His hands gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. "My past," he finally said, "and a mistake I'll never make again." Sometimes revenge isn't about payback, it's about survival. And if this story is gripping you, subscribe right now, because somewhere out there, another person is watching in silence, needing a reminder that they're not alone in feeling trapped, and your one click might help them find it. I didn't sleep that night. After the gala, he locked himself in his office and didn't come out. I sat in my room, replaying everything. That woman's face, her words, the way he reacted, like she'd pulled a trigger he'd been dodging for years. "Afraid they'll finally see who you really are." What did that mean? At 3 a.m. I heard his office door open. Footsteps in the hallway, then silence. I waited 5 minutes before stepping out. He was standing on the balcony, staring at the city lights, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He didn't turn when I approached. "You should be sleeping," he said. "So should you." He took a slow sip. "Sleep is a luxury I can't afford." I leaned against the railing beside him, keeping my distance. "Who was she, really?" "I told you, my past." "That's not an answer." He finally looked at me, and for the first time I saw something other than ice in his eyes. Pain, raw and bleeding. "Her name is Jiwoo," he said quietly. "We grew up together. She was everything to me. My first love, my partner, the only person who ever saw me as more than a weapon." "What happened?" His grip tightened on the glass. "I chose this life over her, and she's hated me ever since." "Why did you choose it?" He laughed bitterly. "Because I didn't have a choice. My father built this empire on blood and fear. When he died, I inherited his enemies, his debts, his wars. Jiwoo wanted me to walk away, start over, be normal." He shook his head. "But normal doesn't exist for people like me." "So you pushed her away?" "I destroyed her," he corrected. "I made her believe I never loved her, that she was weak for wanting something different, and I've regretted it every single day since." The vulnerability in his voice shook me. This wasn't the cold, calculated man I'd been living with. This was someone broken, someone still bleeding from wounds he refused to heal. "Is that why you're keeping me here?" I asked softly. "Because I remind you of her." He turned to face me fully, his eyes searching mine. "No, you remind me of who she used to be, before I broke her." The weight of those words hung between us. "I won't let you break me," I said. Something flickered across his face. Respect, maybe, or warning. You might not have a choice. The next morning, everything changed. I was eating breakfast when Min-jun rushed in, his face pale. We have a problem. He was already on his feet. What kind? Ji-woo. She's been talking to the wrong people. His jaw tightened. How bad? Bad enough that we need to move Kia now. My stomach dropped. Move me where? He ignored me, already barking orders into his phone. Within minutes, the penthouse was swarming with men in black suits. They packed my things without asking, their movements precise and urgent. What's happening? I demanded, grabbing his arm. He pulled away. Ji-woo knows about you, and she's using that information to hurt me. How? By making you a target. Fear shot through me like ice water. A target for who? Everyone. Before I could respond, he grabbed my hand and pulled me towards the elevator. We descended to the underground garage where 3 identical black SUVs waited. Get in the middle one, he ordered. Where are we going? Somewhere safe. That's not an answer. His eyes met mine and I saw something I'd never seen before. Genuine fear. Kia, for once, just trust me. I got in the car. We drove for hours, out of the city through winding mountain roads. The further we went, the quieter it became. No traffic, no buildings, just trees and darkness. Finally, we pulled up to a massive estate hidden deep in the woods. Armed guards stood at the gates. Security cameras lined the walls. This is one of my safe houses, he explained as we entered. No one knows about it except my most trusted people. The house was smaller than the penthouse, but just as cold. All surveillance monitors and reinforced doors. How long do I have to stay here? Until I handle Ji-woo. Handle her how? He didn't answer. That night I heard him on the phone in the next room. His voice was low, controlled, but I caught pieces of the conversation. I don't care what it costs. She crossed a line. Make it clean. My blood ran old. He was going to kill her. I burst into the room. You can't! He looked up, annoyed. I'll call you back. He hung up. You were eavesdropping. You're going to kill her. That's not your concern. Yes, it is. You said I was here for protection, not to watch you murder someone you once loved. His expression darkened. She stopped being the person I loved a long time ago. That doesn't give you the right to... She put a hit on you, Kia. His voice cut through the room like a blade. While you were sleeping in my penthouse, feeling safe, she was paying people to find you, to hurt you, to send me a message written in your blood. I froze. So, yes, he continued coldly, I'm going to handle her, and you're going to stay out of it. He walked past me, leaving me standing there, trembling, because I realized something horrifying. In his world, love and death weren't opposites. They were the same thing. You know what's terrifying? Realizing the person protecting you is also the most dangerous person in your life. If you've ever been caught between safety and fear, between gratitude and resentment, you already know this feeling. Don't just watch, subscribe, because stories like this don't just entertain. They remind us that sometimes the people who save us are the same ones who trap us. And if you've felt that contradiction in your own life, you're not alone. Hit that button. Be part of this community because your story matters too. 3 days passed in that safe house. 3 days of silence. of guards rotating shifts, of him disappearing for hours and coming back with blood on his knuckles that he'd wash off like it was dirt. I stopped asking questions. On the 4th day, Min-jun arrived with the news. "It's done," he said quietly. He nodded once. No emotion, no relief, just acknowledgement. "What does that mean?" I asked, even though I already knew. Neither of them answered. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Ji-woo's face, her anger, her pain. She'd loved him once, and he'd killed her for threatening me, a stranger he'd forced into his life. I had to know the truth. While he slept, I snuck into his office. The door was locked, but I'd watched him enter the code enough times to memorize it. Inside, I found his laptop, still on, still unlocked. I shouldn't have looked. I knew that, but my hands moved before my brain could stop them. Files. Hundreds of them. Surveillance footage, financial records, contracts written in Korean and English. And then I saw a folder labelled with a single name. Hana. I clicked it. Photos flooded the screen. A young Korean woman, beautiful, smiling, alive. But as I scrolled, the photos changed. Hospital beds, bruises, bandages, and finally, a funeral. My chest tightened. This was the woman from the photo in his office, the one he said I reminded him of. I kept digging. Police reports, news articles, all in Korean, but I used the laptop's translation feature. Hana Min, 24, found dead in her apartment. Suspected suicide, no foul play detected. But there was another file, a private investigation report. It told a different story. She didn't kill herself. She was murdered by his father's enemies as revenge, and he'd blamed himself ever since. I was about to close the laptop when I saw one more folder, recent, updated 2 days ago. My name. I clicked it. Everything was there. My entire life, my family, my address, my bank statements, photos of me from years ago, even my medical records. But what made my stomach turn was a document titled Contingency Plan. I opened it. It was a detailed strategy for what to do if I became a liability. Relocation options, identity changes, and at the bottom, in cold, clinical language, elimination, if necessary. I slammed the laptop shut, my heart hammering. He'd been planning for my death since the beginning. You really should learn to stay out of places you don't belong. I spun around. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed, expression unreadable. You were going to kill me, I whispered. If I had to. How can you say that so casually? He stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. Because in my world everyone is expendable, including me. I'm not expendable, I'm a person. You're a risk, he moved closer. The moment you walked into my life, you became a variable I couldn't control. And variables get people killed. Then let me go. I can't. Why not? He stopped inches from me, his eyes burning with something I couldn't name. Because you've already seen too much. Because my enemies know your face. Because if I let you go, you'll be dead within a week. His voice dropped. And because I'm selfish enough to keep you here, even if it destroys us both. Tears burned my eyes. You're a monster. I know. Then why did you save me? He reached out his hand, hovering near my face, but he didn't touch me. Because monsters don't get to save people, but I'm trying anyway. The vulnerability in his voice cracked something inside me. I slapped him. Hard. His head turned slightly from the impact, but he didn't move, didn't react. "I hate you," I said, my voice breaking. "Good," he replied quietly. "That'll keep you alive." He turned and walked out, leaving me standing there, shaking, crying, hating him and pitying him in equal measure, because I realized something I didn't want to admit. He wasn't keeping me prisoner out of cruelty. He was keeping me prisoner because he didn't know how to save people without caging them. And I was terrified that I was starting to understand him. Sometimes the most dangerous prisons don't have bars. They have reasons. Subscribe if you've ever stayed somewhere you shouldn't have, because leaving felt more dangerous than staying. You're not weak. You're surviving. And this community sees you. I slapped the Korean Mafia boss and he let me. He didn't grab my wrist, didn't raise his voice, didn't even flinch the way a normal man would after a woman hit him across the face in his own safe house. He just stood there looking at me like I'd confirmed something he already knew. That made me angrier. "No," I said, my chest rising hard. "You don't get to do that and walk away again." He turned back slowly. Dark suit, cold eyes, blood still drying across one knuckle. "You should go back to your room, Kia." There it is again. I stepped closer. That calm voice, that act. That thing you do where you talk like you're protecting me when you're really just controlling everything. His jaw tightened, but that was all. "You went through my files." "Yes. You read things that were not meant for you. You made my whole life your business." My voice shook, but I kept going. "So now I'm making you mine." That got his attention. He looked at me fully then, and the room felt smaller. "You want the truth?" he asked quietly. "Yes." "You want my real identity?" I swallowed. "Yes." For 1 second I thought he might actually tell me. Then his face shut down again. "No." I laughed once, bitter, sharp. "Of course." "Kia." "No, don't Kia me." I pointed at him. "You dragged me into your world. You watched me before I even knew your face. You made me sign a contract, moved me into your penthouse, locked me inside your life, and you still think I'm supposed to smile and never ask who you really are?" His eyes darkened. "I know what people call you," I said. "Mafia boss, businessman, monster. I know your men fear you. I know your ex hates you. I know a dead woman still follows you. But I do not know who you are." He took 1 step toward me. "Then stop asking questions you are not ready to survive." That should have scared me into silence. Instead, it did the opposite. Because now I knew for sure. The real identity of the Korean Mafia boss was worse than anything he was willing to say out loud. The next morning I went looking for his real name like it had become air, and I couldn't breathe without it. Min-jun found me in the kitchen, still in one of the oversized shirts they'd given me at the safe house, standing barefoot on cold tile with a cup of coffee I hadn't touched. "You look like you didn't sleep," he said. "I didn't." He opened the fridge like this was normal. Like women demanding the real identity of a Korean Mafia boss over breakfast was an ordinary part of his job. "I need you to answer something," I said. "That depends." "What is his real identity?" Min-jun paused just for a second. Then he kept reaching for the water bottle. "I don't know what you mean." That's a lie. His mouth twitched like he almost smiled. You should stop asking that. So everyone says... No, I set the cup down. You all talk around him like he's a title, not a man. Like he was born fully dressed in black with a bodyguard and a private driver. But somebody knew him before all this. Somebody called him something before he became whatever he is now. Min-jun looked toward the doorway, lowered his voice. There are names people earn, he said, and names they bury. A chill ran through me. Which one is his? His eyes met mine then, and whatever was in them made my stomach tighten. That depends on who's asking. Before I could push harder, I heard footsteps behind me. Min-sik. The room changed the second he walked in. Same cold control, same expensive silence, same feeling that everyone else was reacting to weather, and he was the storm causing it. He looked at me, then at the untouched coffee. What are you doing? He asked Min-jun. Trying to keep her from making today harder than it needs to be. Min-sik's gaze came back to me, and I did the one thing he hated most. I asked again, What is your real name? Nothing moved in his face. Not surprise, not anger, nothing. Then the Korean Mafia boss answered in that flat, unreadable voice that was starting to get under my skin. The one you already know is the only one you're getting. And somehow that felt less like a refusal and more like a warning. I found the photograph by accident. At least that's what I told myself when I opened the drawer in Min-sik's study and saw a single black and white picture tucked beneath a stack of documents I couldn't read. It was old, worn at the corners. A young Korean woman stood beside a teenage boy in a school uniform. She was smiling at the camera. He wasn't. His face was already too serious, too guarded, like life had taught him early that softness was expensive. But it was him. Not the suit, not the stare, not the Mafia boss everyone feared. Just a boy. And on the back, written in faded ink, were 3 words, For Min-ho. Always. My pulse kicked hard. Min-ho. Not Min-sik. I stared at the name until the door behind me opened. I turned too fast. He was standing there, still, silent, watching me hold a piece of him he had clearly never meant for me to touch. For 1 second neither of us spoke. Then his eyes dropped to the photograph in my hand. Something changed in his face, and not panic, not rage, something colder. Put that down, he said. I should have. Instead, I held it tighter. Min-ho, I said quietly. That's your real name, isn't it? The room went completely still. He walked toward me slowly, and somehow that was worse than if he'd rushed. That name does not belong in your mouth. My breath caught. So it is real. He stopped an arm's length away. His eyes weren't empty now. They were full of something dark and buried and dangerous. That name is dead. No, I said. You buried it. His jaw clenched. I had never been this close to him while he was losing control. Not truly, not like this. And yet I couldn't stop. You told me the only name I'd get was the one I already knew, I said. You lied. No, he said quietly. I survived. That landed harder than I expected, because suddenly this wasn't just about a hidden identity or a Korean Mafia boss protecting his secrets. It was about the version of him that had disappeared. and what had replaced it. Have you ever looked at someone and realized the person they are now is not the person they started as? Be honest. If you've ever watched pain change someone beyond recognition, you already feel what I felt in that room. Subscribe, because what he told me after I said that name changed everything I thought I understood about him. He took the photograph from my hand like it might burn him. Not violently, not even quickly, just carefully. Like the real danger was not the picture itself, but what it could pull out of him if he looked at it too long. "You should not have seen this," he said. I folded my arms across my chest, and yet I did. He let out a slow breath through his nose, then set the photo face down on the desk. "Min-ho was a boy," he said, "a weak one." The words sounded practiced, like he had repeated them until they stopped feeling cruel. "That's not what I see." His eyes cut to mine. "You do not know what you see." "Then tell me." He looked away first. That surprised me more than anything. The Korean Mafia boss who controlled rooms full of politicians and men with guns could not hold eye contact with one woman, asking about the name on the back of a photograph. "Min-ho believed people meant what they said," he said quietly. "He believed promises mattered. He thought love could protect you." His mouth tightened. He was wrong. The air in the room felt different now. He wasn't performing, wasn't threatening, wasn't managing me. He was remembering. "What happened to him?" I asked. He gave a short, empty laugh. "My father happened, debt happened, blood happened." Then he looked at me again. "The world does not let boys like that stay alive for long." I should have felt satisfied. I had demanded the Mafia boss's real identity, and now I had part of it. But the truth didn't feel like victory. It felt like standing too close to something broken. "So Min-sik Choi isn't your real name," I said. "It's the only one that matters." "That's not the same thing." "No," he said, "it's worse." Silence stretched between us again, but this time it wasn't sharp. It was tired. Human. And that was what unsettled me most, because the more he refused to fully open that door, the more I wanted to know what was behind it. I heard her before I saw her. High heels, slow steps, no hurry at all. That alone told me she didn't fear him. I was still standing in his study, still trying to make sense of the photograph and the name Min-ho, when the front door opened and a woman's voice drifted through the penthouse like she belonged there. "Still hiding behind the new name." Every muscle in his body tightened. I looked at him. Really looked. And for the first time since I had met the Korean Mafia boss, I saw something close to dread move across his face. Not fear of danger, fear of memory. She stepped into the doorway wearing white like she wanted to mock every dark thing in that room. Korean, elegant, beautiful in a way that felt deliberate, controlled. Her eyes found me first, then the photograph on the desk, then him. "Well," she said softly, "so she knows." "Leave," he said. Same voice, same cold tone. But it didn't work on her. She smiled. "You always do this," she said. "You build a new life, a new face, a new name. Then someone gets close and suddenly you remember you're still just him." My heartbeat turned uneven. "Who are you?" I asked. Her eyes slid to me. "The person he should have told the truth to years ago." Then, after a pause, "And the person he failed before he ever met you." He moved then, just one step, enough to place himself between us. "You do not speak to her." She laughed once, bitter. "That's interesting coming from you." Her gaze sharpened. "Did you tell her what Min-ho did, or are you still pretending Min-sik is cleaner than the boy you buried?" The room went silent. Even I stopped breathing. Because whatever this was, it was no longer about simple mystery or dark romance or the identity of a mafia boss. It was about guilt. Old guilt. The kind that stayed alive because somebody never paid for it. And standing in the middle of it, I realized something that made my stomach drop. I wasn't the first woman who had demanded the truth from him. I was just the first one who had survived long enough to keep asking. The second she left, I turned on him. Not carefully, not politely. "You knew she was coming." He said nothing. That was answer enough. I walked past him, then turned back, heat rising through my chest faster than my fear. "You knew, and you still let me stand here asking questions like I was crazy." His face stayed unreadable, but his right hand curled once at his side, tight, controlled, like even now some part of him was still fighting himself. "She should not have come here," he said. "That is not the problem. It is the only problem that matters tonight." "No," my voice came out sharper than I meant it to. "The problem is that every time I get close to the truth, another woman walks in carrying a piece of you that you never gave me." That landed. I saw it. A small shift in his jaw, a flicker in his eyes. Good, because I was done being the only one cornered in this conversation. "She said I wasn't the first," I said. "Was she right?" He looked at me then, straight on, and somehow that was worse than his silence. "Yes." I swallowed hard. The room felt colder. "How many women had to break themselves against your secrets before you decided silence was easier?" "Kia." "No," I shook my head. "You don't get to say my name like that and expect me to soften, not this time." Something in him gave way. Not loudly, but enough. "I was engaged," he said. The words hit me like a slap. I stared at him. "You were what?" His eyes dropped just once, then came back to mine. "Before this, before my father died, before the name changed, before the men around me started calling me boss instead of son," he paused, "she knew Min-ho." I couldn't speak, because suddenly the hidden identity, the old photograph, the other woman, the grief in his voice, all of it clicked into one brutal shape. He did not just bury a name. He buried a whole life. And the worst part, I could feel myself wanting to know what destroyed it. I thought finding his real name would satisfy something in me. It didn't. It made everything worse. Because now I knew Min-sik Choi was not the name he started with. I knew that there had been a Min-ho before the suits, before the bodyguards, before the cold voice and the private elevators, and the way entire rooms bent around him like they were afraid to breathe wrong. And I still didn't know what had turned one man into the other. "What happened to her?" I asked. He didn't pretend not to understand. The penthouse had gone quiet again, the kind of quiet that felt expensive and lonely at the same time. "She was supposed to marry me," he said. The words landed so hard I forgot to breathe for a second. I watched his face, carefully, waiting for the wall to come back up, waiting for him to shut me out and become the unreadable Mafia boss again. But he didn't. Her name was Yun-chai, he said. She knew me before any of this. Before my father died, before his enemies became mine. I stepped closer without meaning to. What happened? His mouth tightened. My father made a promise to the wrong men. Then he died before he could pay what he owed. They came for me next. He looked away toward the dark window. Yun-chai wanted me to run. She wanted me to leave the city with her while I still could. And you didn't. No. The answer came too fast, too flat. Why? That was when he looked back at me. Because boys run, he said quietly. Men stay and bury what needs burying. A chill moved down my arms. That sounds like something someone taught you. It is. He walked to the bar, poured a drink, but didn't touch it. I chose the family name, the business, the blood. She chose to walk away. And the woman from tonight? Jiwoo was her sister. Everything inside me went still, because suddenly the hate in Jiwoo's voice made sense. She didn't just know his real identity. She knew exactly what it had cost him, and exactly who had paid first. I should have stopped there. Any smart woman would have. I had demanded the Mafia boss's real identity, and for the first time he had actually given me pieces of it. More than pieces, maybe. Enough to understand that Min-sik Choi was built on top of somebody softer, somebody who loved a woman and still chose power over her. But something in me wouldn't let it go. You loved her, I said. His face changed so little most people would have missed it. I didn't. Yes. It came out quiet, honest, dangerous. And you still became this. His eyes lifted to mine. This kept me alive. No, I said before I could stop myself. This kept everybody else afraid of you. That's not the same thing. The room went cold. Not because of him moving. He didn't move. Because I had finally said the thing no one around him was stupid enough to say out loud. His voice dropped lower. You think you understand me now. I think I understand enough. Then you understand nothing. I should have backed down. I didn't. That woman didn't leave because you were dangerous, I said. She left because you made sure there was nothing left of the man she loved. The silence after that felt endless. Min-sik stared at me like he had forgotten I was someone he was supposed to protect. Or maybe he was remembering it too well. Then he crossed the room in 3 slow steps and stopped right in front of me. Too close. Close enough that I could hear the change in his breathing. You want honesty? He asked. I nodded, even though every part of me knew I should not. His eyes held mine. Here it is. The reason I never relented. The reason I buried Min-ho and never dug him back up. He paused. The night Yun-chai left, she was followed because of me. By morning, she was dead. The world tilted, and I stared at him, waiting for him to say more, to soften it, to take it back. He didn't. She died for loving the wrong man, he said. So no, Kia, I do not go soft. I do not tell the truth easily, and I do not let people close enough to bury me twice. And standing there with his real identity finally bleeding through the cracks, I realized I had just become one of those people. I didn't speak. Not right away. How could I? I had spent days demanding the Korean Mafia boss's real identity like it was a locked door I could force open if I just pushed hard enough. I thought there would be relief on the other side, answers, control, maybe even power. Instead, I found a grave. Yun-chai died because she loved Min-ho. That truth sat between us like something alive. And for the first time since this dark romance began, I understood why Min-sik never relented when I asked who he really was. It wasn't pride, it wasn't cruelty, it was fear dressed up as control. You think keeping your real identity buried protects people, I said quietly. His face gave nothing away. It does. No, I said, it protects you. That landed. I saw it in the way his jaw tightened, the way his eyes held mine a second too long. Because he knew I was right. I stepped closer anyway. Maybe that made me reckless. Maybe it made me stupid. But after everything he had done, everything he had hidden, I couldn't leave the truth sitting there untouched. Min-ho loved somebody, I said. Min-sik punishes anybody who gets close enough to matter. His voice dropped. And you think you matter? The question should have cut me. Instead, it hurt because I didn't know the answer. Not fully, not safely. But I knew this, men like him did not unravel in front of women who meant nothing. I think, I said slowly, that you've been punishing yourself through everyone else. The silence after that felt dangerous. Then he did something that scared me more than his anger ever had. He reached up and loosened his own tie. Not as a threat, not like the watch, like he couldn't breathe inside the man he had built. And when he spoke, his voice was lower than I had ever heard it. If you stay near me, Kia, you will lose something. My heartbeat turned uneven. What? His eyes locked onto mine. The part of you that still believes men like me can be saved. And that was the moment I should have walked away. I didn't. If you've ever looked at someone broken and still wanted to know what was left of them, then you already understand why I stayed. Subscribe, because the next story begins where this one leaves off. And trust me, some identities are not the only things men like him bury.